Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent and the Merciful. Now today's main headlines. Ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah initiated. Racial discrimination on rise in Sweden's schools, new report reveals. Grand Ayatollah Shirazi reiterates calls to promote Ahlul Bayt's teachings among youth. Scientists report immediate brain benefits from everyday physical activity. Assalamu alaikum dear viewers, this is Hussein Nouinou Shia Waves live from Imam Hussein TV 3 in London. A ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah commenced at 4 a.m. today, Wednesday, November 27th, following recent escalations in violence. The ceasefire comes after Israeli airstrikes targeted a residential building in Beirut, resulting in the deaths of at least 24 people and raising concerns over ongoing hostilities in the region. The ceasefire agreement stipulates an initial 2-month halt in fighting, during which Hezbollah is required to withdraw its armed presence from southern Lebanon, while Israeli troops must remain on their side of the border. However, the implementation of this ceasefire remains uncertain, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned of retaliation for any violations by Hezbollah. This ceasefire does not extend to the ongoing conflict in Gaza, where US President Joe Biden is advocating for a separate ceasefire. Considering the recent violence, Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati urged the international community to act swiftly to halt Israeli aggression and enforce an immediate ceasefire, emphasizing that Israeli strikes demonstrate a disregard for international law. The Lebanese military has also advised returning refugees to avoid areas near the border until the situation stabilizes. To discuss this further, we have with us political and international commentator Hussein Ali Zada from London. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. My first question to you is, what measures are in place to ensure the compliance with the ceasefire agreement, and how can the international community effectively monitor violations from either side?
Well, we know that it was a very devastating conflict between the two sides, and just look at the casualties for Lebanese parties. That the number of those were killed past 4,000, and those injured 16,000, and more than 300,000 homes were destroyed. However, what is important is that when you compare between the war in Lebanon and war in Gaza, it is very significant that to remember that the war in Gaza has so far lasted for 14 months, whereas from the day Israel stepped or invaded Lebanon on October the 1st until today, November 27th, the war or invasion, land invasion of Lebanon by Israel didn't last even 2 months. So it gives a sense that Israel couldn't stand or couldn't resist for two fronts, to fight in two fronts. So this is good side that a ceasefire came to enforce. But regarding the question that who will implement this ceasefire and who has to comply with the rules, I have to say that according to the agreement, the 4 bodies will be active in this case. First, the Lebanese army, instead of the Hezbollah, will deploy to the southern lands. Second, the UNIFIL forces, and those UN peacekeepers will be in the buffer zone between Israel and Hezbollah. The third and fourth, there are forces from France and the United States will monitor this situation. So
So leading on to
altogether,
my
these four
leading
forces.
on to my second question then, how likely is this ceasefire to last, and what could happen if the either side violates the agreement?
Mm. Well, in fact, it's a $1 million question. You know, my simple answer is that no one can give guarantee for a lasting peace ceasefire between the two sides. This is first. Why? Simply because back to 2006, the same conflict, the same tension happened between the two sides, and it lasted only for 18 years until this year, from 2006 until today. And it was based on a UN resolution 1701. So no one can guarantee that this ceasefire can continue. Well, remember that we are talking where at the moment that a new president, a new elected president in the United States will be in the office, and he is Donald Trump, who is a very close friend of Prime Minister Netanyahu. We still don't know how he would act, but as I have said, what is important for me is that even the Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel accepted not to have a second front for war. So he wants to focus on Gaza, and because of that, he wanted to come to an agreement to finish the invasion in Lebanon. So probably it is a good sign of this agreement that the war in Lebanon doesn't come back again. But what would happen for Gaza? It is another question that we don't have any answer for that until to see that how the new elect president of the United States, Trump, will act regarding the Gaza situation. So for the moment, what I can say that no guarantee for this for lasting ceasefire. However, we can say that there are some elements showing that probably uh,
Yeah,
this ceasefire will be respected by Lebanese and Israelis. But we have to see that what would happen in Gaza.
inshallah. Thank you very much for joining us today. That's all we have time for. A report from Sweden's Equality Ombudsman reveals a significant rise in racial discrimination in schools, with 514 complaints filed last year. Of these, 20% involved in racist incidents targeting students of African descent. The report criticizes the education sector's lack of effective anti-discrimination strategies, noting that severe psychological and social toll on affected students. In response, Stockholm's City Council announced a comprehensive plan to combat racism and discrimination in both public and private schools, labeling the findings as extremely serious and calling for an urgent action. Rights groups and local authorities have also urged stronger measures to promote awareness and ensure safe, equitable learning environments for all students. The Supreme Religious Authority, Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq al-Husseini Shirazi, has reaffirmed the importance of spreading the culture and morals of the Holy Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, among young people. The Grand Marja emphasized that this mission is crucial in protecting them from deviance and guiding them towards goodness, enlightenment and righteousness. His Eminence also urged the youth to read Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq's letter to his followers, which is found in books such as Tuhaf al-Uqul and Bihar al-Anwar, encouraging them to reflect on its messages, applying its teachings and share it with others to spread its profound values. This call is part of Grand Ayatollah Shirazi's ongoing efforts to guide society toward adhering to authentic Islamic values, emphasizing the pivotal role of youth as the foundation of the future and their need for direction rooted in the principles of the Holy Prophet and the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them. Let's take a look back at today's main headlines. Ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah initiated. Racial discrimination on rise in Sweden's schools, new report reveals. Grand Ayatollah Shirazi reiterates calls to promote Ahlul Bayt's teachings among youth. Also tonight, UN report reveals 336 cases of violence against journalists in Afghanistan. A recent study by Penn State researchers reveals that everyday physical activity can significantly enhance cognitive processing speed, making individuals feel 4 years younger. The study highlights that both light activities such as walking or household chores and vigorous exercises like jogging contribute to these cognitive benefits. Participants aged 40 to 65 reported their physical activity levels multiple times a day over 9 days, revealing that those who engage in physical activity showed immediate improvements in processing speed. Although working memory did not show significant enhancement, response times mirrored the cognitive speed improvements. Jonathan Hakoun, lead researcher, emphasizes that even small movements can positively impact cognitive health, suggesting that regular physical activity may lead to greater long-term benefits. Future research aims to explore the relationship between physical activity, frequency, and cognitive health over time. The findings were published in the Annals of Behavioral Medicine. And now we continue with some short news. Amnesty International has reported that the Kenyan armed group committed crimes against humanity during its control of the Libyan city of Tarhuna between 2015 and 2020. A report by Amnesty revealed that the existence of mass graves left by the armed group in Tarhuna, located southeast of the capital Tripoli, accusing the group of crimes against humanity, including murder, torture, and unlawful detention. The findings are based on testimonies from 74 individuals who lived through the Kenyan rule in Tarhuna, including former detainees, relatives of victims, and forensic experts. The report comes a month after the International Criminal Court (ICC) announced in October the issuance of arrest warrants for 6 individuals accused of committing war crimes in Tarhuna, confirming that these individuals remain at large and have not been handed over to the ICC to date. A new report from the Internal Displacement Monitoring Center reveals that the number of internally displaced people in Africa has surged to 35 million, tripling since 2009. Of these, 32.5 million have fled their homes due to conflict and violence, primarily in 5 countries: the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Somalia, and Sudan, which account for 26 million displaced individuals. The report highlights that 93% of displacements are conflict-related, exacerbated by poverty, inequality, and the exploitation of grievances by armed groups. Additionally, disaster displacements have increased significantly, now reported at 6 times the rate from 15 years ago. Driven largely by climate change impacts such as floods and droughts, experts warn that without substantial investments to address the root causes of displacement, these numbers are likely to continue rising, particularly with ongoing conflicts and environmental challenges across the continent. Local government schools have refused to enroll these children, citing their status as Rohingya refugees. Despite presenting necessary documentation, including UNHCR cards, schools have consistently denied admission, leaving families without options for formal education. The Delhi High Court recently upheld these refusals, stating that Rohingyas are considered foreigners, lacking legal status in India. This ruling reflects a broader trend of increasing hostility towards the Rohingya community, particularly since the rise of the Bharatiya Janata Party in 2014. The party and associated groups have labelled Rohingyas as security threats, advocating for their expulsion from the country. A new publishing startup, Spines, has faced backlash from writers and publishers for its plan to publish 8,000 books next year using artificial intelligence. The company will charge authors between $1,200 and $5,000 for services including editing, proofreading, and distribution. Critics argue that Spines is prioritizing profit over quality, with independent publisher Canongate labeling them as dingbats who lack genuine concern for literature. Spines claims authors will retain 100% of their royalties and insists it is not self-publishing but a publishing platform. However, industry experts warn that authors should be cautious about paying for publication, citing concerns over originality and quality. The company promises to reduce publishing time to 2 to 3 weeks, a claim echoed by Microsoft's recent announcement of faster book imprint. The Sayyid al-Shuhada International Committee, one of the global charitable organizations affiliated with the Supreme Shirazi Authority in Kuwait, has launched a relief campaign to support Lebanese families affected by the ongoing war. Under the guidance of Grand Ayatollah Shirazi, the initiative includes distributing blankets, winter clothing and daily meals served in a field kitchen, alongside food baskets with meat supplies. The campaign utilizes religious funds, khums, to provide urgent aid and reflect a global call from the Supreme Religious Authority for believers worldwide to support Lebanon during this humanitarian crisis. It should be mentioned that the Shirazi-affiliated charities have continued to support the Lebanese families displaced by war through different humanitarian initiatives to help meet their daily needs. The UN reports 336 cases of violence against journalists in Afghanistan, highlighting severe media restrictions and the plight of women journalists under Taliban rule. More details in the following report.
The United Nations released a concerning report on Tuesday detailing the state of media freedom in Afghanistan, documenting 336 cases of violence against journalists from August the 15th, 2021 to September the 30th, 2024. The report, published by the UN Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, UNAMA, and the UN Human Rights Office, reveals extensive censorship and repression under the Taliban's de facto government. Key findings include 256 cases of detention, 130 instances of torture or ill treatment, and 75 cases of threats or intimidation. The report emphasises that Taliban's measures have fostered a culture of self-censorship among journalists. An 11-point media directive restricts content deemed contrary to Islamic or national values, requiring journalists to seek approval from the Ministry of Information and Culture before publishing sensitive reports. Since the Taliban's takeover, 43% of media outlets have closed due to economic collapse and oppressive regulations, with remaining outlets struggling financially to bans on music and entertainment. The environment for women journalists is particularly dire, with over 84% losing their jobs since 2021. Restrictions such as mandatory hijabs, travel limitations, and bans on women's voices in broadcasts have marginalised female media workers who often face discrimination and exclusion from press events. The UN urges Taliban authorities to align their practices with international human rights standards and ensure women's full participation in the media sector. Volker Turk, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, stated, "Media freedom is essential to public accountability and informed debate," calling for international support to sustain Afghanistan's media landscape and restore access to education and employment for women. This is Arush Fatma for Shia Waves.
Thank you for that report. We have reached the end of today's Shia Waves news. Let's remind our dear viewers of today's main headlines. Ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah initiated. Racial discrimination on rise in Sweden schools, new report reveals. Grand Ayatollah Shirazi reiterates calls to promote Ahlul Bayt's teachings among youth. Scientists report immediate brain benefits from everyday physical activity. UN report reveals 336 cases of violence against journalists in Afghanistan. You can view the latest news on our Shia Waves website and link it to the news of your city or country to be published on news agency. Contact the numbers at the bottom of the screen. Thank you all for watching. We pray to Allah Almighty to hasten the reappearance of the Master of our time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم والعن أعداءهم أجمعين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين